of some of the land and water issues. So there are three. So that when we talk about water, we can't ignore land, because what happens to land affects water. Okay.
They're asking you to sit in the chair.
Okay.
So we can connect the.
Okay. Start again, or? So good morning again. What we would like to talk about is some of the key aspects of water in the landscape. So when we talk about water, land is connected to water. So water and land affects each other. So what happens to land can affect water. What happens to water can affect land. So for example, if land, we apply fertilizers, we apply pesticides, that can pollute water. If we have a salty water we use for irrigation, that can make soil or land saline. And after that, it's hard to grow crops. And to really sustain water and land, we need management. So management can be for land or for water. And management is something we are short of, or something scarce, we need management. So for example, you have so many things to do, then you need time management. So you need to understand where my time is being spent, where can I use more effectively. Or if you have problem with money, you need money management. So you need to understand how much, what cost how much, and how can I live within what I earn. And same with the land and water. So if things are plenty, you have a lot of time, you don't have to worry. But if you have limited time, you have to do certain things. If you're studying or if you're employed, there are certain things to be done. And if you have a management, so management is about how, if you have a given resource, what things can you do that will make the use of that resource more efficient, more sustainable. And that's where management comes. So water management, land management, or water in the landscape, management of the whole system is important. And that can help with the productivity of water and degradation of land and water resources. So if you have a good management, say take example of agriculture. So where you have, if you use more effectively, like instead of flood irrigation, you use drip irrigation or sprinkler irrigation, you can increase the productivity of water. Means more goods are produced for every cubic meter of water used. And at the same time, if you manage properly, you can avoid degradation of land and water. Once, for example, your soil is saline, it is very hard to solve the problem. But it's so better to prevent happening, like our health. So once, say if we look after our body, exercise, eating right food, right amount of food, then we are healthy. But once we get into problem, then it could be worse, it could take long time, and we are not the same again. So same with land and water. So healthy water, healthy land will produce healthy food and also help the future. So there are a lot of interaction happening in water. So you can't just think of water, but in the nature you have land, water, which interact as we talked, and air. So air also interact with water. For example, if you have polluted area, polluted air, and you have rain, so all the pollution come into with the water. And if there is a lot of sulfur dioxide or some other things, what they call acid rains. So when that falls, you have soil becoming acidic, and if you use that land for agriculture, you can't produce some foods. If that land, that water get recharged into the groundwater system, and when we use that water, it can affect the quality of water. So land, water, air, though they all interact. So it interacts with land, it interacts with water. And then we have animals. So animals, birds, and plants. So it could be agricultural plant or some just natural plants. And they interact. And then there are microorganisms. So microorganisms in soil, some are good, we need to have them, some not good, and water also. And then people, because they affect, they are part of the system. So people can affect plants, water, land, animals. When we change the landscape, we change the whole thing, whole hydrology of the area. Because say if we have just farming area around city, and then we start building houses, what happens? It's all concrete surface, hard surface, more roads, more concrete. So what happens to hydrology? Anybody?
Water can't penetrate under the surface ground.
So more runoff. Yeah, more runoff. And with the runoff you have pollutants also, because we run cars on the road, we spill some things, chemicals, other things, and that all gets into water and then affect. And also it changes the whole microclimate. So because when we have a natural land or agricultural land, then we have evaporation, transpiration, and then whole area is cooler than if you put houses. Because what happens, concrete, if you have concrete everywhere, then when during the day the heat is absorbed in concrete, and then it is released towards the end of the day. So whole day it's hot, and when it is when it is hot, for example, we have 35 or 38 degrees, and if the same area, not far, so if you have more natural land, it will be 2-3 degree cooler. But in the where you have concrete and all these things, even 2 degrees hotter, so 38 to 40 degrees. And 38 to 40 degrees, even when temperature is high, even 1 degree is worse. So every degree change in temperature is worse. And this is all connected with water and how we manage the landscape. So what happens to these animals, plants, microorganisms, people? Then they interact with the nature. So they affect air, land, water. So everything is connected. So water connects all these things. So land, water, air, people, animals, plants, microorganisms. And to really manage the whole system properly, we need to really work with people. We can't ignore them, because you can have a very good technology, very good idea. If people don't accept that idea, no matter how good it is, it won't be effective, it won't be used, it will fail. So But if people want that we want to do something, then things can get changed. So, and say, if as soon as you have people involved in the problem, it becomes very complex, because you really need to work with people, because many schemes can fail if people don't accept, and especially agriculture or even urban, rural, peri-urban, those areas, you need to have support of people. And all of you have studied many times this hydrologic cycle. So water is just going around all the time, and what we do with the land management, water management, can affect the whole cycle. So the sun is the driver of the hydrologic cycle, so it really affects the transpiration, evaporation, then how much rainfall we get, and then groundwater system, river flow. So this is hydrologic cycle. And so what has happened in last, say, 50 years, because of these greenhouse gases, the temperature has changed, gone up, and that has affected this cycle. So we have extra issues. So we have already some issues because of the population pressure. We require more water, we need to produce more food, and then all the economic activity happening, like industries of whatever industry you take, they require water to cool things or to dispose, or they just, sometimes water is part of what they produce. And so we have changed, and so it can affect when the hydrologic cycle is changed. So what that means is we could have more drought, we could have more flood, or because especially in India, the Kharif crop depends on timely water, rainfall. So if you have very heavy rain and then no rain, then your crop is finished. So say if I remember when I was growing up, generally very good rain. So 1st of July or around there, you will have rain, September, and generally good crop. But now either monsoon is delayed, or heavy rain and no rain, and still problem. Or sometimes rain in January, February. So you have a crop and rain falls, the crop is destroyed. So it's more happening. Earlier, rarely there was rain in outside monsoon months. So after October, generally you don't expect rain. But now, because the whole hydrologic system has changed, and we have these changes, and it's affecting. So I think as you are really becoming professional, and you have a really great opportunity and also responsibility to how we can make, so problems are always there, but how we can solve the problem, how we can work with the problem. Sometimes you can't solve the problem, but improve the situation. So with our own effort, our own management strategy, change in policy, how we can make things better. And this is a map which shows that 54% of India faces high to extremely high water stress. And you can see where these dark colors are. So most places we have very high stress of water availability, and that will get worse. So in India we have resources, like Professor Tiwari said, we have water, but how do we manage this? it's a big issue. And so most of the northern part of eastern part and southern part are water stressed. And so it's a big challenge for us. And so one is the quantity, and then when we get it, the second issue is the quality. So you can have water available, but if the quality is not good, quality is not fit for purpose. So if you're drinking, you require certain quality of water, and if the quality is not suitable because of the pollutants, heavy metals or some chemicals or some pathogenic bacteria, then we get sick, and that's also not good. And if you're using for agriculture, you have too much salt or something, then plants won't grow, or over time soil will become not healthy. So that's also a problem. So poor quality is a big issue, and that's why we see everywhere bottled water. People, they want to be happy if they can afford, they buy bottled water. But again, bottled water creates another problem because you have plastic and you have to dispose of it, creates more sustainability issue. So how can we, I think we have to attack the cause of the problem. So at the moment, people are they're concerned about water. So these reverse osmosis equipment are sold like anything, but not everyone can afford. And also it's not sustainable because it requires more water, extra water to purify, and also it costs more. Not everyone can afford. So we have a big challenge to improve the quality. And in West Bengal, for example, this arsenic is a problem. In Bangladesh is this belt. And this is because we are taking water from deeper aquifer, and it says arsenic already there, which is a problem. But if we somehow manage our surface water and have a fresh water, maybe we can reduce the problem. So the message is we have to save every drop of water. We have to produce more of every drop. And until we think in a small way, we can't achieve the bigger goal. Because in India we have, I think, sufficient water still, but how we manage, how we think about water, and how we engage everybody to save water. So water we drink every time, and it is very important. We go to temple, water is an important part, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, everywhere water is regarded as an important thing. And water, like Indian belief, rebirth and purification. So water doesn't go anywhere, it just recycles. So evaporation, transpiration, rainfall comes back. So same water, for example, we release here, it might appear in Delhi or another country, and it's coming back. So it's a natural. And it's a sacred thing, and it's a part of many religious ceremonies and so on. So we have to keep purity of water. And the big question is the population. So globally, now since maybe 2010 or somewhere around, the global population in urban areas is more than 50%. It was below. Even in India, so we used to say majority of people live in rural areas, but not anymore. More people in cities. And so globally, the urban population now is more than 50%. It's just crossed the 50% mark. And that also increased the water consumption. So it has gone, and there is a good correlation between the water we draw from the system and the population. So as the population goes up, we require more water because we need to produce more, we need every day in the home more, and so on. So, but there is a limit what you can do with the population, but we still need water and we need to do something better. So, three main issues when you talk about water, whether in agriculture or urban or semi-urban: quality, quantity, and availability. And that's in space and time. So we want water where we need water, and also the time we need. So if we can think about these three aspects, if we can solve any problem or issues or work with those issues, quality, quantity, and availability, we have a better water future. And water is also important for environment. So we need for human consumption, we need for human needs, but in the past we ignored the environment because we were thinking we can use as much water as we like, but water is also important for environment. And so this is what is called environmental flow. So we'll talk a little bit more, but say for example you have a river, so you can't take all the water because water needs to flow in the river, and it has function. So any ecosystem like plants or animals or any living fish or those things, they need to be there. Otherwise, you are affecting the balance of the nature. So I give an example in Australia. So Australia is there are 5 states. So one is Queensland, which is on the top, and New South Wales, where Sydney is, and I work there, and the Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, and then there are Northern Territory, which is near Indonesia, and then Australian Capital Territory, where Canberra, the capital. And so there is a river called Snowy River, and so they built hydroelectric dam and then contain all the water and then producing electricity and then release water sometime. And so what happened to that river was, in following 20-30 years, slowly there was no water flowing. So the river became dead, totally dead. There's no vegetation, no life there. And then people realized that that's not a good thing. So then they changed the whole thing. They started making extra water flow into the river, and the life came back. Same in Victoria, there were forests, and there is a river system called Murray-Darling River System. It runs from Queensland to South Australia to the sea. So it's about 4,000 kilometers long. And so there were forests along the way, and the irrigation developed. And so farmers were taking water, and they put the weirs along the river. So in a natural system, you have flood, you have fluctuation in water, but once you put the dam or some sort of check dam across the river, so you have a very controlled water level. And so that affected the fish and the other things around and there's no flooding anywhere. And so some of the forests disappeared because earlier there were natural flooding and then dry, and river used to rise and go low flow, and there was a balance, and that changed. And so there's a good sort of environmental thinking in Australia. So people at a grassroots level, they argued with politicians, argued with the policymakers that we need to have water for the environment. And so we extra water was released. The farmers had to agree, look, we need to do extra water. And that really bring the forest back, life back. So think, say for example, if there is a river and there's no water flowing, and another situation where water is flowing, plants are growing, you like to visit that river. It makes the whole thing look very attractive, nice. So that's important. Water for the environment is important. And in South Africa was very pioneering what they have done. So I met with that person in Sydney. We invited him for a conference. His name is Mr. Kader Ismail, and he was a lawyer but environmentalist. So he said environment is a stakeholder in water. Means you have to put certain percentage of water for environment, and many countries followed. He passed away 3-4 years ago, but he is well known for that idea. And so people think, oh, why you need to waste water for the environment? But because the environment affects us in the long run. So you think, for example, we had floods in north, this Himalaya, Kedarnath, Badrinath. Many people lost their lives. And this was because of we changed the whole land use and the environment, and then flood came and was a big problem. So same this thing. And the second thing is wetlands. They also play a very important role in environment. So if you have a wetland, so everybody know what a wetland is? It's just a land surface with the water ponding and sometimes water moving. And so, for example, sometimes wetlands are used for cleaning wastewater. So you let water flood the area, a little bit flow. And so if you have, say, 1 kilometer long area and water is just going through that wetland, and you have some plants growing, and at the end you get a clean water because all the pollutants, especially nutrients, are taken up by plants growing. And sometimes if you plant the right sort of variety of plant, they can take out some heavy metals. And there were some studies done which shows that you can clean water through wetlands, 90% clean water. So you don't need a big equipment, machinery, or plant to clean water. So nature can do its job. So wetlands are very important. And wetlands also creates their own environment. So birds come, because there is a nature, there is a balance. You need balance. And once you take an important part out of that system, nature is a system. So everything, like a car. So you have wheels there, engine there, steering wheel. Now if you take one of them out, the car just stops. Similarly, nature has its own balance, and once you disturb that balance, then it takes a long time, and sometimes you can't fix it. So in northern part of India, I'm not sure here, but there's a blue bull problem. Have you heard of that? It's like a cow, nilgai जिसको कहते हैं. So in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, so these blue bulls, they run around farms, and they just destroy the crop, eat the crop. Very strong build, and it's become a big problem. So farmers just stay all night just to make sure that these blue bulls don't come. And once they come, and they also run very fast on the road, accidents like that. And why they have come? Because the forest disappeared and there was a balance. So, for example, tiger or some other. So they were keeping balance between blue bulls and the other animals and so on. But now there's not that balance. So there's more population. And so that's a consequence of disturbing the balance. Similar with water. So once we disturb the balance, then it's become a big problem. And water also important for flora and fauna, biodiversity. So biodiversity means we need different things in our surrounding, and if you have more of one thing, then it takes over. Then you lost the balance, because depending upon the climate, soil, and whole landscape, there has been a balance. Nature created its own balance with all the animals, all the plants, trees, and when this balance is disturbed, then there's more of some other thing, and which is not very good, and it creates problems. So water plays an important role in maintaining ecosystem. Wetlands are part of the water environment and also important for flora and fauna. And so water issues. So basically you have urban areas like cities, and then rural. And another area I want to mention is peri-urban, which we will talk. So peri-urban is between urban and rural. So they are not urban, but they are not rural also. So peri means halfway. So we have lots of peri-urban. Every city, small city, big city, they are peri-urbans. And they have different issues. So rural has different, urban has different, peri-urban has. So urban, the issues are stormwater, means when rainfall comes, water runs off from the roads and collects into drain, and so that's a issue. And then we also generate, like city like Kolkata, millions of people living. So if everyone sort of produces discharge of 10 liters, it's a big volume. And so effluent reuse, because the water is there, so that's an issue, how do we reuse? And then groundwater. So people are pumping groundwater, or more this polluted water going into groundwater system that can affect. So if you are taking water through hand pump, the water may not be good quality. And it's not popular here, but many countries like Middle East, Australia as well, and some other countries, if you are near the sea and you want to solve the water problem, water scarcity problem, you take that water and remove the salt and reuse. So these are the issues. And rural, water trading has not come here, but I will explain a little bit. And the security of supply. So if you are a farmer, you want to be sure that I will have water for crop I want to grow, whether it's a groundwater or water from a canal. And so in Australia, so if you have a farm, so over here we don't have a licensing system, but in Australia if you have a land of particular size, with that comes a license for water access. So if you have 100 hectares of land, you have certain volume of water every year. If you have a creek or river going, you can take that water, or if you have access to groundwater, you can take. But it is licensed. So it's not I have a money so I can dig deep well or bore and take water. Over there you have to take a license, and then you are asked to meter that water, how much you use, and then if you exceed, then your license can be penalized. So water is through licensing, and one day I think we might have to do something like this. Depends, because you can't transport the system here, but within our local sort of thinking and ideas, we need some sort of regulation, whether it's a government regulation, which is very hard, but self-regulation. So if people in the village, they decide, because this is our future, and we want to use only this much water, and then we'll share that water, that sort of thing. So water trading, so if you have a license, you can sell that water. So, okay, I don't want to grow anything, but I can sell this water in the market. So you get certain cubic meter of water for every season, and so there will be people who want to buy that water. So that's the license. And so that has come into effect in last 10 years as a part of national water reform. So people can sell their water, people can buy water. So it's a trading. So it's a trading is very much like a share market. So this company share. So the price of water, the share of water, price of water could go up if there's more demand. Means there's a drought or some people want more water in particular area, then price can go up. So if someone can pay more, you have more water. And then, so that's in rural. And people are also thinking this sort of trading in urban areas. So everyone will get certain amount of water. It is just a thinking, has not been implemented. But if you have everyone will have certain right to water, maybe 200 liter or 500 liter per day or per household, whatever. And then if you use less, then the water can be used by somebody else who will pay back. So you pay less for what you use. And people who use more, they pay more, extra, high price. There's a basic everyone gets, and then if you buy more, so that's a sort of a market type regulation, and that can work in some places. So these are the issues nationally, internationally, and same if you talk about US or Europe, these similar issues. So what are the challenges for future? So rapid urbanization. So every city you go, people are just expanding. So there are developers, and then there are people who want to sell their land because they can make cash out of that. And so it's a massive land use change. And then you have the global warming, climate change. So increasing temperature and increasing frequency of extremes. So either very hot, very cold, or too much rain, too little rain. So that is coming. And river system at risk. So our rivers are becoming polluted, and almost we are killing the rivers, because once you have polluted river, not much water flowing, you don't really want to go near the river. So I was some years ago near Mathura, and so I couldn't go near the water. It's too polluted. It's supposed to be very clean. So we're just killing the whole system. And I think could mean our whole future at risk. So water is that important, because we know that some of the civilizations flourished where there was water, and those civilizations disappeared when water disappeared. and you go to especially Australia, so where there is water, all the cities, Sydney, Melbourne, where there is water and you can produce food, and that's how it developed. So if so water is important, so primary production, like any food, vegetables we eat every day. So if there is no water, means our food production will be affected. If you play cricket or other sports, and if the playground is maintained well, you want to play. But if it is dry, it's not very good. Or public open spaces. So if area around your home, your town, have a public open space with green, you like to walk in the morning, evening, you feel happy, you want to live there. But if it is everything crowded, nowhere to walk, you feel very constrained. We are all human beings, so and that affects our life, our well-being. And so people who see green, they are happier, they are healthier. So there was some study done in Netherlands that in a hospital, one with a similar patient and one with the window open to a green area, and another one not so green area. The patient in the green area recovered quicker because of the look and feeling. So that's how things can affect. And we need environmental flow. So there must be some water flowing in our creek, river, to keep the balance going. Because everything is interconnected. So if water in the river, then it recharges groundwater. And if you have maintained groundwater and no rain, then the water flows back to the river. But if we have depleted everything, no water in the well, no water in the river, and we are in trouble. And also we need to develop economically. So industries need water. And so our future, so we need people with jobs. So we need manufacturing. We can't say that, okay, because we want to conserve water, so no industries. We can't do that. But we need to have industries. They need to use water. But the question is, how do we supply that water? How do we manage that water and share that water and still produce the things? So, so this will affect all these things. So it will affect employment. Somewhere I was in Stockholm about 2 months ago, and this World Water Forum. So that's where they announce every year this International Water Prize, similar to Nobel Prize. 1 year ago, Mr. Rajendra Singh, he got that water prize. So over there was a presentation saying that 3 out of 4 jobs depend on water. So when there is drought, like any big change you have, then it affects everything, everybody. So employment, tourism. So if there are good water bodies or water related things, people come from another state, another country, visit. It was a nice place to go. So people get jobs, so the economy works, and everybody benefits. And it affects the lifestyle of people. So if you have a water problem say you need water every day and there's scarcity, tanker didn't come or something didn't happen, so you can't go to the job, or you are stressed already, you have to organize, and so affects people's lifestyle, have to spend. If you go to some villages, people have to carry water from kilometer. In Rajasthan, 1.5 kilometer more. So they spend a lot of time, women especially, they have to carry water. And so, we've done some study there, and we found that because of all this water fetching, girls don't go to school, or they drop out, or they have more, they absent more from school, and then it affects the future family. So it can affect lifestyle, people, and health. So human health. So what we eat, how we produce, what sort of water we use, it's get into the vegetation, vegetables, food. So we were just talking during the tea time that in Kolkata, because they use wastewater, so some of the vegetables and other things have heavy metals or other chemicals, and also most likely pathogens. And so when we eat, our immune system goes down, and so something happens, we get sick quickly. So that affects. And the river health. So healthy river will have natural aquatic organisms like fish or microinvertebrates or some other things in the river. And it is sustainable, but once we have too much discharge of nutrients or some other pollutants, river becomes unhealthy. So you will have blue-green algae, water will be smelly, and can't use, even birds, fish, all died, can be dead, and it's not healthy. And it affects the health and education, I already mentioned, so can affect the education of people, and biodiversity. So to balance the nature, we need all sort of plant, flora and fauna together, where there is a balance. But if you remove some things, then more of another thing, and more is always not good. Sometimes it can be a problem. Fishing, fruits, vegetables, turf, in the nurseries, they all can be affected. And productivity of water. So liter of water used per kilogram of anything we produce. And so these numbers give you, so meat requires, if you grain fed, about 15,000 liter for every kilogram of meat. And then you come to pulses, roots, 1,000 liter of water. Rice, about 1,500 liter of water. So 1 kilo of rice, you require that many liters of water. So if you throw away 1 kilogram rice, you are throwing away that many liters of water. So the water productivity, how we can work around this is important. So this is how you can produce more and use less water. So managing water. So when something is scarce and there's more competition of that resource, you need to manage. And management requires really good thinking, good strategy and policy. And so increase water productivity means get most out of renewable water resource and improving irrigation management. Adopt farming practices to increase water scarcity, so better cropping or better method of irrigation, they all can increase water productivity. And also safe reuse of water. So if you are using wastewater, how we use safely. So what we produce is not risks to human health, not risk to local river or creek, and also not risk to when you are using that water. So if you're doing irrigation and if farmer is using that water, it shouldn't affect his health or her health. And the other is the rainwater harvesting. So if we can harvest that water and we can store on the surface, because especially in India we get main rainfall during monsoon, and so after that it just you don't have water. So rainwater harvesting, either store on the surface or recharge groundwater, and then you can use when you need. And then you can have micro irrigation, so drip or similar, where you use water very effectively to individual plants. And also, if we can have more water going into the soil, that's also really useful, because more water means eventually it will be stored in the root zone, and some will deep percolate and will be in the local area. And so we need land and water conservation. And at the same time, we need to balance water for food and other ecosystem services. So ecosystem services means supplying the water for ecology of the area, so it can produce better water quality, is for local vegetation and other things. So ecosystem is a silent actor, means because we human, we think everything is ours, and but there is this stakeholder, so we need to provide that thing. So we need to give water for environment. We shouldn't ignore, because some people's mind environment not important, because we need to produce more, we need to take everything out of the system and use, but that's not going to help. It will create more problem. And also enhance benefit in agriculture, wetland interaction, because wetlands can be very natural way of cleaning water. And so if you have polluted water, we can, especially in urban, peri-urban areas. And again, same, so sustainability is important. And when we talk about sustainability, what it means is we need to think from range of perspectives. So from social, economic, environmental, and policy, and other aspects. Then we can achieve sustainability. So physical, just as a water body, we need to think about that. Social, people's need, people's aspiration. So I give you a recent example. So in this, there's a large area in Australia called Murray-Darling Basin. So it covers 4 states, very big. So it's 1/5 of the total land area of Australia. So I will show you at some point the map and other things. And so there is an organization called CSIR, which is combination of ICR here and CSIR. So they did a modeling that how much water is required for environment and how much can be used by farmers and so on. So they did a very extensive modeling and produced a report for the government, and they said so many gigaliters of water should be kept for the environment. So they did a good modeling, very accurate, very thoughtfully done in terms of the calculations and so on. And then farmers were given that thing, report, and they got very agitated. How can you take our water, our lifestyle, our livelihood? And so there was agitation where these farming areas, and they burnt the report before a TV crew, and it became a national headline. And then the CEO of the Mar-Darling Basin Authority, he had to resign, and then the minister was in there, and then they just dismantled the report, and then they started consultation. And so what that shows is you can have good idea, but if you didn't consider social, because people have invested so much money, and if you go just say no more water for you or less water for you, they are not with you. So like here, we have in some areas groundwater. So you can't go and tell farmer that please don't pump anymore or pump less. He or she will say, I have put a bore which cost me 1 lakh rupees, and I have this and that, and how can you tell me not pump that water? But if you have all the farmers get together and understand the problem, and we will work together. This is what happened in Andhra Pradesh. One really good model. I might talk later on. So same, the social is very important. Cultural is important too, because people have certain belief, and so if you don't consider the cultural aspect of water, your scheme or your idea won't get into practice. So good example is the reuse of water. So if water is wastewater from household, coming from everywhere, and then you say to people, you clean that water by best technology, and then say, okay, please drink this water. No one will drink, or there will be hesitation. So there was a scheme in Rajasthan. So what they were doing is during the rain, Rajasthan and some other places. So during the rain, you have runoff, and then you direct that runoff through a pit and filter, and then drop into the well. So you have a direct recharge of well through rainfall, more water going in. And then it was a good idea because you are water harvesting and recharging the well. But people didn't agree because the water was coming from land area where it was not clean, say maybe this dung and other things and so on. Then it's dropping into water, and then they can't drink that water because it's not clean, not pure. So slowly whole thing disappeared. Same in Australia, when there was a drought in 2002 to 2008, there was a severe drought for 6-7 years, not much rain. And so there was a lot of innovation happened. And one thing was there was a town in Queensland called Toowoomba, and so the mayor of that town wanted to solve their water problems. So they are able to clean water to a high quality, medically proven that this doesn't have bacteria. This is very clean water, as good as anything. And there were two groups. One was against drinking wastewater, clean wastewater. Another one said, no, it's fine. So how to solve that problem? So they had plebiscite, this referendum. And so there was argument from both sides. And eventually it failed because more number of people said we don't want. So they couldn't do anything. But in the area where I work, is near Sydney, which is called town called Richmond. So there is a river flowing, and the wastewater from little bit cleaned, but still flowing from some of the treatment plant into the river, and then 10 kilometers down, it's pumped. No one bothers because it's a flowing water. But if you say, can you drink this direct water? No. So what I'm saying is cultural aspect is important if you really want to make it effective something. And the environmental, we discussed a bit, that environmental aspects of water in terms of water for the environment is important. Economic, so water is also so many liters of water, so many rupees or dollar, whatever. So we can't ignore that. And then institutional. So there are institutional arrangement in terms of water management, water control. So there might be department of irrigation or public water supply department, and they have a role to play. So they really control how much water you can have, what you can do with water. And then spiritual is important. So spiritual, everyone has some ideas about how water should be used and how it affects their life. So all these aspects need to be considered together to develop any sustainable water resource management. But if we only consider say, physical and economic and others are ignored, we will get there some point, but not the total sustainability. So what we want in the future is what water we have is available for next 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. So the water we have today, we don't pollute, it's available. If we can achieve that sort of goal, I think we are doing good for our country, our environment, our future. So maybe I stop here. Any question from anybody? Okay, thank you.